Here we go. It's showtime. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Coin Republic podcast. Today, I have with myself Mr. Brian, who is the founder and steward of Iki, a trustless market making protocol that enables the use of sophisticated algorithm strategies on Uniswap version 3. Their yield is automated, single sided concentrated liquidity provision strategy by making rebalancing decisions based on token comparison instead of token price. One of their strategies is called Yield IQ that limits impairment loss and generates industry leading results. True to the spirit of DeFi, Yield IQ is governed by a self executing smart contract. They're currently based on Arbitrum. They're launched on Arbitrum, which is a layer 2 solution. It is my honor to introduce you guys to the screen with the one and only Mr. Well, you should have put your last name over here. What you just said.
Mr. Brian will work.
Brian Cross.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good to be here, Saurabh. Thanks for having me on the show.
Brian Cross, you are the man behind this project.
Well,
First
actually,
off,
even
a little
on
bit
that,
of introduction.
I was just saying I don't want to take too much credit. The project itself was initially formed by volunteers from maybe 5 different companies. None of them worked for me, but yet I have been with it for quite some time, and a lot of the ideas originated from me. So yeah, like everything in DeFi, it's a group effort. But yeah, good to be here today.
So nice to have you today.
Yeah.
Yield IQ has taken a unique approach by making rebalancing decisions based on token composition rather than token price.
Mm-hmm.
Can you delve deep into this strategy limits, that limits impairment loss, and how has been able to generate industry leading results?
Yeah, so these terms, impermanent loss, rebalancing, automation, they get complicated. I like to just boil it down to if you like something and you wanna earn more of it over time, just don't sell too much, right? And that's logical to us. If you were making a market, buying and selling something at the farmer's market, maybe they're apples, and somebody comes up to you and says, I want to take all your apples for your current price, and your goal is to leave there with more apples than you started with. You wouldn't sell them all at that price. You'd raise the price. You'd adjust it to protect yourself from the information that person has. Now in DeFi, all these systems didn't know what you deposited. So you deposit to Uni V3 or Uni V2 or one of these other dexes, and they give you back this pool token, and the pool token represents this claim on both assets. And you get the same token whether you deposited asset A or asset B. It doesn't know what you put in there, and it doesn't avoid overselling it. So what really happens here is it knows what you put in, and it takes steps, measures, countermeasures, if you will, to prevent overselling it. It's that simple.
Fair enough. Let's go a little ahead on this topic, right? The emphasis on yield IQ being governed by a self-executing smart contract is quite intriguing, to say the least, right? So how does this ensure impartiality, decentralization, and most importantly, trust for other users in the DeFi space?
Yeah. So the rules that govern how it puts positions into Uniswap v3 or any one of a number of forks. They're all on chain, and they can't be modified by anybody in a way that harms the depositors. And the logic, like the timing of when those rules are executed, is governed by Chainlink nodes, who also don't have any off-chain data. They're simply looking at the current status of the pool on chain and pressing a button every single block. And when those on-chain rules say, hey, it's time to do something, the logic will execute. And so this enables depositors to really put their funds in there and trust kind of a known system. They know what it's going to do. It may have a bug in it, so nobody knows that, so I'm not trying to say it's perfectly safe, but the rules are clear, and there is no other counterparty or fiduciary or anybody that they're trusting. They simply can look at the smart contract and trust the Ethereum nodes to execute it, or the Chainlink nodes to execute the rebalance.
Fair enough. You chose Arbitrum. Any particular reason for that?
We were actually on a number of chains: Mainnet, Polygon, Arbitrum, BNB chain.
Okay.
But certainly Arbitrum, I think a top two, maybe even the best layer 2 in the space, but it's in the top 3, no question. Their ecosystem is very vibrant. When you go to a conference and you meet all the DeFi founders at an Arbitrum event, it's impressive how they've come on the scene. So yeah, we're very thrilled to be on Arbitrum.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Itchy's recent collaboration with Chainlink, let's talk about that. Can you share more about this partnership and what it means for the future of liquidity management in the DeFi sector?
Yeah, so Chainlink's best known for their oracles. They'll go and read prices from various off-chain exchanges and then write those prices on chain. But they've used that same infrastructure to enable you to execute anything on chain. In our case, they're basically executing that rebalance. And so if you didn't have something like that, you might be trusting somebody running an AWS server or something else that you don't quite understand to trigger the rebalance. And many of our competitors do that. But we just think that in the spirit of DeFi, it's best to use the industry's most decentralized, most trusted infrastructure for anything as critical as timing rebalances. And they've been a great partner. And they invited us into the Chainlink Build program. We've enjoyed meeting all of the other Chainlink partners who, in many cases, become Itchy partners. And they're building an impressive ecosystem there. Our CTO is actually presenting at the Chainlink conference in Barcelona, I believe in 2-3 weeks. So,
wow, it's fantastic. So let me ask you, because you're in bed with Polygon, with the side chain. Arbitrum is a layer 2 Chainlink in itself, right? So with the increasing adoption of layer 2 solutions like Optimism, ZK rollups, and Arbitrum, how do you see these technologies impacting the scalability and efficiency of DeFi platforms? And are there any potential trade-offs that users should be aware of? Any side effects to this?
Yeah, so if you take just our rebalance function, calling that function on mainnet cost about $60. On Polygon, it cost 9 cents. Arbitrum maybe 20 cents, 30 cents. So you can see that it's not just a little difference in cost, but 100x difference. And that really matters when the size of the pool or the size of the project or the amount that you can deposit for that given token pair is smaller, right? Like we can't really run volatile pairs on mainnet at this point if they don't have $500,000 in them, $1 million plus, whereas you can support $5,000, $10,000 pools on these other networks. So I think that speaks to scalability, and I think that you could imagine in the next cycle, everybody in this space likes to talk about the next cycle. Those costs I mentioned could go up 5-10x on mainnet overnight. They have before, and that rebalancing cost could suddenly be $300, $500 instead of 60. So the reality is that you weren't going to scale this type of automation and apps on mainnet for that many users or that many different types of tokens. And so I think each has its place. My own thought is that probably mainnet will be there as more of a hub, blue chip assets, pools that are really large, hundreds of millions of dollars inside them will be there. And that capital can actually be used as collateral across the whole ecosystem. So we are partnered with a few projects that are making that possible. So I just think that people really got into what the consensus was doing, what a specific chain was doing, and in the end, it's going to organize based on good business practices, economics, and what makes sense for each application. So you don't actually get to tell the world how to act. They're going to act in the way that makes the most sense.
Right.
But each thing has a trade-off. There's always trade-offs, and one of the biggest is cost.
Okay, fair enough. Cross-chain solutions and bridges are becoming more prevalent in DeFi space. So how do you see the role of interoperability evolving in the DeFi ecosystem, and what challenges does it pose for both developers and users?
I'm actually not a big believer in interoperability at a user level, as I haven't seen it yet. Like if you think of a given use case, that use case usually is happening on chain A or chain B, where what the bridges seem to be used for more are transfers of value that correct imbalances, or flows of capital from one chain to another. And then it more or less stays there and gets used in the use cases in that local area. So like in the real world, we could see that people, they put their stuff in a moving truck and they move it across the country, and they move into a new town and buy a house and start a business. They don't necessarily make businesses that span two cities, or have households where the children live in one city and the parents live in another, right? That does happen, but it's not the most common thing, right? So what I think is that bridges are an accurate word, and more or less people move value across them to do things in another area, more than making some use case that actually works across all of these various things. Use cases like that, I think collateral moving risk is probably easier than moving assets, or mixing it. So using collateral somewhere else to borrow value elsewhere, we do see that a lot, right? You might get a loan from any bank in any city. It doesn't really matter. You're still going to use what you borrowed in your own town. So I think you'll see things like that, but I don't really know that it makes sense to make more complicated use cases that are interoperable.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about yourself. I told you before the interview, you sort of have this angelic presence. I don't know, something about.
Yeah, just joining my coffee, get some sunlight coming in.
Just a second.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that. And that's why we got it recorded.
Mhm.
So, stream frame rates drops sometimes because of the internet. And that's what I was talking about. I was figuring it out yesterday to fix it. Apparently, it's just shit. But okay, let me give a editor's way. Mr. Editor, if you could edit this part out, thank you. Okay. Do you actually play piano with it? Okay. Oh shit. It's actually live on a zero subscriber YouTube channel, and I use it as a backup. Okay. And
Yeah.
now a lot of is this who's this Mike Simmons guy is watching it and he's commenting on it. Okay. If you know
Oh, okay,
crypto,
great.
do
Yeah, we're just gonna talk to him.
yeah, Mark Simmons, if you want to know about crypto, well, this is nobody watches my live stream, but thank you for tuning in. Okay. Okay. Did you answer that last question that I asked you
Oh, well,
about yourself? Did you start
okay.
answering that, or
Yeah,
should we start
so
from the beginning?
I don't think you made it all the way through the question. You were saying I was
Okay,
angelic,
let me ask.
so you just stop there.
Yeah. Okay. Let me again give you the compliment. All right. Okay. Where's that question? Where is that question though? Let me check. Uh, what type of itch he uses? Brian. Okay. Okay. Got it. All right. Retake. Let's go. All right.
Yeah.
So Brian, do you know we talked before? You have an angelic presence. It's something about you, right? Quite radiant. So you have a lot of experience as well, from IBM to Amazon to Hedera. What prompted you to develop the Ichi protocol?
So at Hedera, I was really on while being on their board and advising economics, I was thinking about the problems in proof of stake networks. And one of them is that there ought to be some economic tie to the value of the stake and the value that is transacted on the network. And Ichi was originally created to create that tie. Now, after making it, you end up finding a whole bunch of other problems. And one of them was certainly the fact that you couldn't profitably deploy assets to Uniswap v3 in a non-custodial way. There were hedge funds, market makers, other really smart people using options and various approaches to edit their positions, and they were making money, but
Mhm.
that isn't really why we got into DeFi in the first place. You could do that on regular exchanges. And
Mhm.
so we ended up going down that rabbit hole and working on that problem, and fortunate enough to experience some pretty good results. And then that later became our focus, right? So
Mhm.
I think anytime you're in a new space, the space is changing. You just have to be willing to adapt to the problems that you're seeing. And if you begin to solve problems for yourself, you often solve problems for other people as well.
Fantastic. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
That's like the Spider-Man, with great powers comes great responsibility kind of a line.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that one thing you would like to share with the budding entrepreneurs who are trying to make it big on the crypto market. What's the trick? Because you have a lot of star-studded company on your resume, but people who want to go solo on the entrepreneurial route, especially in the Web3 space, it's a bit challenging. What are your
Mhm.
tips?
Well, I think that in any space, there are probably a few behaviors that can help you. One is approach things with a lot of humility, right? Like you think you know the best way, but all around you you're getting feedback, and if the market's telling you, well, this isn't working, if you need to listen to that and adapt. So I think that, and then the second is you in your given space, you need to be willing to dive deeper than anybody else, right? So look for problems, keep asking why, digging deeper until you find some sort of problem that ends up connecting, you know, actually causing a lot of different issues. and you begin to find something that you should really work on and solve. And then yeah, so I think, and then a strong bias for action. Like I you find it, you need to, you need to work on it now, and you need to move fast because speed really matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can,
Great.
a lot of these things, they are reversible. So if you go down the wrong path, you can back up, make the other turn, but you only learn
Mm-hmm.
that by actually just moving quickly. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, and this is the tension, you have to move safely. And so, um, the heavy focus on auditing, on getting many different opinions and many different looks at what you build, at testing with real money in it, so that you find out if people you didn't know uh, can find problems. These types of things also just make the system safer. So there's a lot in the space. It's a very complicated space. It's very messy right now. That
Mm-hmm.
is what creates the opportunity. But yeah, you have a lot of competing tensions in trying to chase it.
Sure. So can we go back to the basics? What are the use cases of Ichi tokens? What can users expect if they avail of your tokens?
Yeah, so we've actually we've become very B2B oriented. Most of our customers are other protocols at this point. And in fact, Ichi itself is nearly fully decentralized, if not all the way there. So the protocol is out there. It doesn't really need to pay for anything anymore. It just works. And instead, there's a group of companies building on top of it. So companies or projects. These include like the Retro AMM on Polygon, Ramses on Arbitrum, a few others I can't name on BNB chain, and Polygon's ZK is going to be zero. These other organizations are actually the go-to-market for Ichi now. They build on top of the protocol. They embed these strategies into their AMM, and that's really where you access the tech or even the token itself. And then the token is really in the hands of the people who have it. They can govern the system with it. They can vote with it, etc.
All right. So what type of strategy does Ichi uses for rebalancing, and what do you mean by healthy state, over inventory state, under inventory state, high volatility state, extreme volatility state? What are these different states?
Yeah. So in that on-chain contract that's trying to, protect what you deposit and respond to conditions, there are maybe 20 plus parameters in there. A lot of these are around, they're in just a couple of categories. One is something weird going on in the pool? Has the price changed a lot more than normal? And can we trust the current state? And normally the answer to that is no. It do nothing is the outcome. It just wait for the ripples to die down or things to stabilize. Another parameter is really the composition, and that's what those inventory ones are talking about. I mentioned earlier, if you have something and you want to grow it, you want more of it, you don't want to sell too much of it. Now, in that, so if you sold too much, that would be under inventory. I don't have enough of these left. But you also want it to be used in trading. So if you never sold one, you would never get paid a trading fee, right?
Okay.
And so if you have too many, then that really just means you don't. The rules need to loosen so that trades are easier and you earn more trading fees. So that's what the system's really doing, is it's trying to balance these concerns in not
Mhm.
ways that we made up, but ways that we back tested and found previously worked best. Yeah. And you don't know what
Okay.
will happen in the future. I mean, any one of these tokens could go to zero in an instant, and that wasn't in your back test. But if the future behaves like the past, the strategy is pretty well optimized for that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So a recent news about the Banana Protocol resurfaced about the bug in smart contract. What type of practices do you think a smart contract platform should use to create maximum value for their investors?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with exactly what went down with Banana. Do you have any additional details there? But yeah, I mean, I
So it's like what happened with one of those DeFi protocols a couple of days ago. What was that name? So they had their bug in a compiler, but
mhm,
I too don't have much more information about what happened with Banana Protocol. But since it's connects with what you guys do
yeah.
pretty well, if you could like to, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have the details there. I'll have to go look and see what
But
what we do.
overall, if
When
you could
we see something like that in the news, we will go and read um, what usually Peck Shield and others will come out with a deep dive into exactly what occurred. What I do understand here is that they had a problem that their auditors missed, and that can happen to any protocol. And so there is always going to be some smart contract risk when you're dealing with DeFi. The best way to mitigate that risk, I think, create a very security conscious culture. So you need to have developers and leaders technically who insist upon testing everything, right? And so if it's not if your test can normally catch the problems if you completely cover it with tests, um, long before you go to audit. But then audit is this last step where I fully tested it. We've rigorously tried to find any problem with it. But what do you guys think? You've seen more stuff than us. Are there any extra issues or areas of concern? And then you hopefully iron out all of those types of issues. Normally, uh, when you find a lot of problems in a contract, um, it's because you've been moving too fast and you're not being careful enough, right? And you're not doing enough testing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, most of the attacks that happened on compilers and bugs, right? Uh, we oughta go back to the basics of decentralized tenants, right? We gotta have to
Mhm.
make sure that no matter what happens, security, scalability, and the blockchain trilemma, right? The security, scalability, and the transaction stays safe, because without it, decentralization wouldn't be perfect. And I know everybody's trying to maintain that equilibrium, but these sort of attacks are definitely making headlines every now and then. Only thing from a news perspective we can say is that, well, you gotta have to be safe and diversified,
Mhm.
even within crypto. That's the only way we could, safeguard ourselves. Diversification,
Yeah,
right?
that certainly, the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Yeah,
Basket, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, Brian, it's an honor to have you on the show. We talked about the Y protocol, sorry, the your protocol, and we talk about itchy tokens. And any final words for the people? How could they find you? Where do should they? Are you available on Twitter? Where are you active the most?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, or to reach out via our Telegram or Discord. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic enough. All right. We'll see you
Okay,
guys on the other side. You gotta have to
okay,
stay
appreciate it. Okay.
just a second. You gotta